Parental love is something that each and every child deserves in their childhood. It is something that ends up molding them into who they end up being in the future. However, it is no secret that things can get complicated between family, and today's tale takes form around that truth as well. Today, we'll be covering a mother-daughter relationship that definitely needs to be heard by many. As always, do not forget to leave a like on this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. Make sure to press that bell notification button as well, in order to ensure that you will never miss a single one of our uploads. Without further ado, let us dive into the story. Patricia lived a very happy life with her husband and son, as they considered themselves to be the perfect little family. However, every family has their own little burden that they carry, and in this case, the weight of the burden was fully on Patricia. More specifically, her relationship with her old mother, Ludissa. Even if Patricia wanted nothing more than to be connected with her once more, Ludissa lived alone in her own house, as she claimed that it was how she preferred it. Patricia's past wasn't the most cheery either, as her relationship with her mother was full of emotional turmoil. It did not help that her mother's marriage was on the rocks as well, as Ludissa and her husband fought all the time, at least until he passed away in time. Patricia was always reminiscing of the one time that she tried to confront Ludissa in order to complain about her indifference towards her. However, instead of closing the gap between the two and reconciling, Ludissa ended up offending her daughter instead. Even with all of this, Patricia stood with a strong heart, as she loved her son with everything she had. She always told her son that she was like this because she did not want to repeat the same mistakes of his grandmother, Ludissa. Ludissa was a strong woman in her own ways, as she was firm in the stance of distancing herself from Patricia. Even in instances when Ludissa was ill or in trouble, she was stubborn. Patricia always looked for a way to help her when she is in need, but Ludissa's pride got in the way, as she was always rejecting any kind of help from her daughter. All that Patricia has ever wanted was an opportunity to grow close to her mother and make up for all the lost time of her childhood. However, things were more complex than it seemed. It was no secret that Ludissa enjoyed spending Christmas with any of her sons, even if it meant her having to travel all the way to their houses. She even made sure to attend their birthdays and celebrate other occasions with them, but Patricia never received any treatment of the sort. It deeply saddened her to be treated this way by her own mother. It was commonly known by the entire family that Ludissa owned 80 hectares of land, which amounts to almost a huge valley close to the town where they lived at. Patricia frequently received calls from her brothers, claiming that they should push for a distribution of land together. However, every single time they reached out, she only had one reply: "I will receive what my mother gives me, not what you say. If she thinks that I deserve something, that is how it will be, and if not, that is okay. She will continue to be my mother, and I will love her in the same way." Even though she was straightforward when letting others know her stance, she was furious within. She was angry at the fact that her brothers were fighting over the lands, while their mother is still alive and well. Even if Patricia never involved herself in such pressure tactics, her brothers never gave up on their efforts. They finally managed to convince their mother, Ludissa, to distribute the land amongst each and every child she has. Ludissa was 86 years old at the time, and even if it was legally required for her to invite Patricia to the meeting, she did not do it by herself because of her pride. Instead, she asked Patricia's older sister, who was already enthusiastic about the distribution, to invite Patricia to the event instead. When Patricia received the invitation, she did not refuse. However, she kept no expectations due to the way her mother treats her in the first place. The meeting was to be held in 90 days, but Patricia was never excited by the prospect. Patricia did not hold any ill will towards Ludissa. It was always Ludissa that rejected the love and care of her daughter, Patricia. Patricia had already forgiven her for all that had happened in her childhood with her mother. All she wanted was to understand why Ludissa treated her the way she did, but Ludissa never bothered to answer any of the questions. Instead, kept her stubborn silence. However, things took a turn when Ludissa had an accident at her house a few days after the announcement of the distribution of the land. She was cleaning the room when she lost her footing as she fell. It took time for Patricia to hear about the incident due to the fact that Ludissa never bothered to tell Patricia anything. It turned out that Ludissa instead called every son and daughter other than Patricia, and she received the same answer from all of them. They were all too busy doing their own things. When Patricia receives the call from another one of her brothers telling her about the incident, she immediately takes action as she went to her mother's house. Ludissa was taken by surprise, as all she could say was this: "I've been calling everyone, but no one has been able to come. They are all busy. Excuse me for not calling you, but I didn't want to bother you." Patricia happily asked her mother not to worry and that she had left someone else in charge of her business for the time being. She was intent on attending to Ludissa until she gets better. However, a few words that Patricia never thought that she would hear in her lifetime escaped Ludissa's lips at that moment. "I'm sorry, my child." At this point, Patricia and Ludissa's relationship changed into something that resembled a respect-based relationship. The way they communicated at times felt like it was just two strangers that were communicating, but it was still something. For 30 days, Patricia left her bakery in charge of someone else as she tended to all her mother's needs. She made her food, helped her dress, and even combed her hair. It turned out that Ludissa had broken her foot, and due to poor blood pressure, an operation was not possible straight away. The doctors recommended Ludissa go on a special diet in order to regain mobility back on her legs. Because of this, Patricia took great care in the food that she prepared for her mother. Even with all of these developments, none of Ludissa's other sons and daughters came to check up on her. Instead, she received phone calls from them as they apologized for not being able to visit her. The day of the operation soon arrived. Patricia received a collection of money from all her siblings as they eagerly waited to hear how their mother was doing after the operation. After all, Patricia was the only one that was there for her, and the only one who could provide said updates. It turned out that the operation was a success, but it came at a cost. Ludissa could not do anything by herself for at least a month until she regained her strength. However, as Ludissa reached out to all her sons in order to see if they'd be willing to let her stay with them for that time period, all she heard were excuses as to how busy they were. Patricia even tried to persuade them to take turns to do so, but all her words fell onto deaf ears. Patricia immediately extended her hand as she asked Ludissa to come live with her family until she gets better. Ludissa was overwhelmed by the show of kindness. She never expected the daughter that she always pushed away to still care about her to this level. She was disappointed at how her other children pushed her away when she needed them the most. Due to this, Patricia took it upon herself to take care of Ludissa all by herself. She coordinated her meals and medicine, while her son constantly kept Ludissa entertained with stories from school. Even if Patricia took care of Ludissa out of the kindness in her heart, Ludissa still felt uncomfortable due to the way their relationship had been. However, things took a turn to the better over time, as Patricia even managed to see her mother smile from time to time. It was definitely an improvement from how things used to be. As Ludissa finally recovered and returned to her own home, things turned back to the way they used to be. Ludissa still preferred to mostly converse with her sons, but this time, she did not keep Patricia out of the loop. She even called her from time to time to catch up with her. Patricia was over the moon by this development, as it was a step in the right direction when it came to fixing things with her mother. Patricia could barely hold her tears at times when she was finally having conversations with her mother over the phone. The days flew by fast, as the day of the land distribution finally came to be. Just days before the meeting itself, Ludissa received calls from her children as they confirmed that they would be there. As everyone arrived, Ludissa was waiting for them by the table. They started the evening slowly as they ate and drank. They caught up with each other's lives until it finally came the time to discuss the main topic of the day. Without wasting time, Ludissa stood up in an energetic tone, announcing to the table, "There will be no distribution of anything today. I have written a will which will be opened the day I am not with you any longer." A year had passed since that meeting. Calls between Patricia and Ludissa had become more common to the point that they happened every day. However, one fateful night, Patricia was alarmed at the fact that she didn't receive the daily call from her mother. Distressed, she immediately took to the car and rushed to her mother's house in her pajamas. However, by the time she reached the house, Ludissa had already passed. Patricia found it hard to attend the funeral. Things between her and her mother were finally getting better. The last thing she wanted to see was the woman that she loved so much in a casket. As 2 days passed after the funeral, the lawyer in charge of Ludissa's legal matters called a meeting between all her children. As he opened up the will in front of all of them, he announced that Ludissa left almost everything to Patricia, as she believed her to be the only one that came forth when she needed help the most. Ludissa also claimed in the will that she has full faith in Patricia's abilities as a good administrator, as she wants Patricia to use the resources well to build her business to even further heights. Every single one of Patricia's brothers and sisters were taken by surprise, as they all had believed that Ludissa absolutely hated Patricia. At the end of the meeting, the lawyer gave Patricia a private letter sealed by Ludissa, where she gave her the explanation that she had wanted since she was very young. It turned out that the reason why Ludissa fought with her husband so much was because he had an affair with another woman, and he had a daughter with that woman. That daughter was none other than Patricia, and while Ludissa decided to take care of her and love her, the bad memories that were attached to her drove Ludissa to push Patricia away from her life. Even though Ludissa accepted Patricia as her daughter, she would never forgive her husband for cheating. While Patricia was surprised to hear that she was not related by blood to Ludissa, the last line in the letter made it not matter to her. "Daughter, although you didn't carry my blood, I loved you since the day I met you, and I will always continue to love you until the day I'm gone." So, what did you think about today's story? Let us know in the comments below. As always, if you liked the story, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories like this. Make sure that you share this one with your friends as well, and thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.